our leadership does a fantastic job. And so I'm just really excited and humbled for this opportunity.
Coach, you mentioned coming from a competitive family, and you've definitely brought that into your family. You mentioned your oldest son, Tyler. Your youngest son is also coming up through the ranks at Del Valle, going to end up, in my opinion, being a Division I player. But maybe the most athletic of them all, your daughter, Emma, broke the record for kills in the area. Incredible usage rate as an outside hitter for Cedar Ridge. Can you kind of brag on your kids a little bit?
I definitely will. And, my two sons, they kind of get upset or look at me crazy. When I say competitive, when Tyler comes home, Monopoly, sorry, whatever we play, everybody's trying to win. And so, Emma Grace being the most athletic, she is the most athletic child I have, one of the more dynamic athletes in our entire family. Great work ethic. Of course, she's a fantastic student. Loves competing. Matter of fact, she's running track for Cedar Ridge right now. And so, she's going on to Lafayette to play volleyball, but I'm just really proud of her. And it is tough on Coleman being the youngest when your two older siblings went D1 or are going to Division I institutions. And so, that's his goal. Just like any other high school football player here in the state of Texas, he's just been blessed with the best size of all my kids. Coleman's 6'3", 191, has a 5.3 GPA, runs track, so he's and right now he's a defensive back, and that's where we kind of project him. And so we talk about being athletic and having great grades. All my kids were blessed. Their mom did a great job. That's where they got it from. They get it from me. But Coleman being 6'3" and 190, he kind of got blessed with the size.
Coach, I want to ask one more question about volleyball. I mean, you come from a football background, the son playing in the NFL, coaching on the sideline, hearing how crazy those football parents are, yelling from the stands. But I think what might top that is volleyball parents. I mean, being out, hearing the parents yelling from the stands at a volleyball game, and let alone the club scene. How crazy is that going from you coming off the gridiron and being a volleyball dad?
It was eye opening. Us volleyball parents, we get kind of rowdy, and sometimes I'm just yelling, and I'm yelling the wrong things. And so it's very intense. The thing I will say about volleyball parents and that select crowd is it's a huge investment, not just, of your income, but of your time. When you're flying to Orlando one weekend, to Vegas the next weekend, so as a family, it's a huge investment. And so, yeah, we're very competitive. And like I said, sometimes myself and the fellow dads, we're yelling the wrong things, or we're all upset, and our daughters just give us that look. So it was very good for Emma Grace to play for Austin Skyline. She grew tremendously. Very proud of her and just that club, the way that they helped her grow.
Coach, backing up to these last few weeks, what has it been like for you? Did you expect to get a head coaching job so soon after moving from Bastrop to Del Valle? Did you know it was coming, or was it a quick move for Coach Acosta to Arkansas Pine Bluff?
That in the back of your mind, knowing Coach Acosta's history, 3 years, and so I think, and it was difficult, but it's also a blessing because you have to labor and you have to wait. Want to be in charge, you want to see things, but also I want to grow and learn from him. And so, the departure was tough on our kids, in our program because, Bobby Acosta is a huge name. And so just trying to learn some of the things that he was doing there, also trying to build the program, and also trying to tell these young men, hey, we can win if we do things right. And so it was be a big challenge moving forward. Very excited. Like I said, and I'm very humbled, to be one of, I think there's 249 6A schools in the state of Texas, and I'm one of those head coaches. So, man, I am, and in a very tough district. So, the last month, I think I worked 28 days straight, and that's just what it is. And so, yeah, it was a grind, but, man, I'm really excited.
You mentioned that tough district. I wanted to ask you about that because you already had Westlake and Lake Travis in it. Now you got Dripping Springs. What was this past season like having to scheme against these programs, these schools, and now knowing that, hey, I got to be the head coach and worry about the offense and the defense against three of the top programs in the state of Texas, not just Central Texas?
It's amazing to watch the talent and the schemes and the way that they commit themselves, and so sometimes you don't realize that you get on the field. You can watch film on Westlake all day. It is a different beast when you're on the field live. And so, coming from the 5A ranks, it was a big adjustment for Coleman, and then he adjusted fast. I had coached in DeSoto and coached in big games, and so I kind of understood it. But it's, I tell you what, and not just for football, if you look at all sports in that district, when you have a Buda Johnson and a Dripping Springs and Bowie, that's three very good competitive high schools in all sports, without even talking about Westlake and Lake Travis and Anderson and Austin High. And we all add something, to the district. So I think, for me being a defensive guy, learning how to manage the game is something I'm going to really, focus on and making sure that we do a good job on both sides of the ball and special teams. And so really excited about the huge challenge, because it will be a challenge in this district.
Newly appointed Del Valley head coach Todd Patman on the phone, Flex ATX. Coach, a couple more for you before we let you go. Everyone knows Coach Bobby Acosta is an offensive guy, kind of quarterback guru, comes up with these awesome schemes on offense. But you're a defensive guy. Given the talent that you have in Del Valley, being a defensive guy, the facilities you have at Del Valley, what can Del Valley fans and Del Valley athletes expect from that program after you take over?
Yes, sir. Well, one of the things we talked about right away was building a culture of competitiveness. So we want to compete, in everything that we do, and we're blessed to be able to say, hey, we compete against some of the best in Texas. And so, with our returners, we're going to return a big bulk of our offensive linemen. We have 3 running backs coming back, and so it'd be foolish for me to say, hey, we're going to do something different. We have to build an identity of being tough. We're going to run the ball. And I think if you look at Del Valley's history, when they were good, they ran the ball, and so we have some young quarterbacks. They're going to have to grow up fast. We're going to be physical as possible. And I think sometimes people think, well, he was a defensive coach. Well, I know exactly what hurts a defense. So hopefully that's something that we can bring to light. But again, our thing right now is just being competitive in everything that we do, track, off-season, powerlifting, and then try to bring that competitiveness to the football field. And so really excited. Our kids have done a really good job of responding, and we'll start spring ball in about a few weeks, and then we'll see where we are as a program as far as our physicality. We want to be a physical team on both sides of the ball.
All right, Coach, a couple more for you. And again, thanks for your time. So taking over for you on the rest of this radio show after we sign off with you, we have Lake Travis running back Nico Hamilton, and Cameron made a good point. In that district, you have to scheme for these high caliber offenses. So we're going to be talking to Nico the rest of the show. As a defensive guy, what is your mindset leading up to a game to scheme up and to try to come up with a plan against a really, really good running game?
I tell you what, that Lake Travis does an awesome job. So does Drip, and everyone does. But, talking about Nico, I watched those guys, the way they ran the ball against Arlington Martin. That was an eye-opener. Because I know how good Arlington Martin is, and so the big thing is, against good offenses and elite teams we play against, you're not going to stop these offenses. Basically, it's how do you slow them down? How do you extend the drive, make them have to snap again? And so, the big thing is trying to, crowd the box and take away the first option in the RPO game, but sometimes those guys are just that good. And so I think, it's you want to scheme, yes, you want to put kids in position, but it's just how do you limit their big plays and how do you limit their guys, and then how do you take snaps away from them?
All right, Coach. One more for me. So I asked Emma. I was like, "What's something cool? What's something about your dad? What is he into?" I was like, "Is he into cooking?" And she said, "Heck no. I don't know what that means." But then she said that you're super into how you look. So I know Coach Belichick got the hoodie. You got the Highland Park coach like to get all dressed up on the sideline. She said that you're into ironing your t-shirts. Everything got to be super clean. So what's your mindset like going into game day, ironing your t-shirts and getting your style right?
I tell you what, my grandmother was really big on looking the part. I'm big on white shoes, being white. I love my white shoes. I wear them all the time on game day, and that looking crisp. And I'm also big on my shirts looking good, and so that's just something I've always done. I've always been like that. And just and I can cook. I don't know what immigrants are talking about. I can cook, but yeah, the white tennis shoes and the long sleeve shirt and the game day. I just and we tell our kids that, and I believe in that. If you look good, you feel good, you play good. So I was always flashy as a player. On my kids to feel that way, and just so I've always been a neat guy. Keep myself looking neat and try to be on point.
Coach, I work pretty extensively with Craig Way, and we talked today during Light the Tower about you coming on the Flex Show, and he mentioned that he knew you pretty well, and that I believe you actually taught his son Andy. Is that correct, in history class?
I taught Andy and his daughter.
Oh, okay. Any good way stories?
Andy was my guy. We got off track. We got off a history class where we started Mr. Way for a long time, Andy as well, and just a great relationship. Love Craig, the things that he does, and any chance I get to listen to him, I do.
All right, Coach, we'll let you go on that. And before we let you go, finally, who you shouting out here tonight?
I tell you what, man, I'm shouting out the Card Nation. Our young men have done a great job responding, to my demands. Really excited about our 8th grade group. And I want to give a big shout out to our track program they'll be running tomorrow at Cedar Ridge. And also to our softball team bouncing back. Del Valley softball has been on fire. Had a tough one yesterday, but I know they're going to bounce back on Friday. And then so did Del Valley baseball. Led the game for 5 innings and then got beat by Lake Travis. So just love our kids competing. Big shout out to them and a huge shout out to my wife because she, I work 7 days a week. She holds it down and is very supportive. And sometimes she knows more football than I do. At least she'll tell you that.
Well, Coach Patman, we thank you so much for your time and congratulations on the new gig.
Thank you.
All right, brand new Del Valle head coach Todd Patman taking over for Bobby Acosta. Listening to the Flex ATX Wednesday night show. Coming up next, Nico Hamilton, the Lake Travis running back, when the Flex continues.
Flex, ATX. Nolan, I heard you try to open the show like me last week.
Dude, I got your cadence, and I said your name, too.
I was listening.
I said, my name's Zach Lucero.
Zach Lucero, Nolan Hogan, Cameron Parker, Nico Hamilton, Nico Hamilton's dad in the stew with us. Before we get to the D1 bound, the record, soon-to-be record breaker, the flowed up Nico Hamilton, let's talk about a couple soccer scores. We mentioned soccer playoffs. Both of those into the quarterfinals now, Cameron.
Yeah, so we now are on to the regional quarterfinal round, and let's shout out a couple of the Centex schools. Starting off with the boys soccer 6A, we got Stony Point in Dripping Springs playing on Friday. Drip, both girls and boys made it to the next round. That should be a good game. And then boys 5A soccer, Cedar Park's Jackson Mask, I shout out the goalkeeper. He had an incredible outing in shootouts. A lot of games from the Centex region went to shootouts. And actually, after Cedar Park missed their first couple ones, Jackson Mask saved the season, both literally and figuratively, stopping 3 straight shootout kicks. Cedar Park would end up winning that game over Alamo Heights. They'll now face Southwest on Friday. Another Centex school, Fleurville Connolly, blanking Magnolia West 3-0. They'll face against Laza Liberal Arts and Science Academy. Who knew? They have a great soccer program this season. They'll meet on Friday in the regional quarterfinals for the boys 5A. And then Leander and Rouse will meet for the 3rd time this season, district rivals. They tied the first game, but then Rouse beat Leander 6-0 the second time. So they'll face Friday as well. That'll be a good one. In the girls' side 6A, Round Rock outlasting San Antonio Reagan after a slight lightning delay. They would win that game 2-0. They'll face Dripping Springs on Friday in one of the most exciting games across the state of Texas in soccer. Now, Drips had a great season. They've been to the state title game. They're losing one of their best players, Ellie Hodson, because she's joining the USA Under-16 women's national team. She's going to France this week, guys. So she's going to miss about the next 2-3 weeks of the season, which could hurt Dripping Springs, but we'll see. A really fun game against Round Rock and Dripping Springs on the girls' side. Also, Georgetown, Burnett, Giddings, Wimberley, all advancing to the regional quarterfinals as well. And a great stat on the Dripping Springs Tigers. They've outscored teams 109-11 this season. Caroline Dill, their goalkeeper, has 13 shutouts. So that'll be a good game. And then Vandergrift, they'll play Westwood. Vipers won in the shootout over San Antonio Johnson this last week. Libby Brookers, their goalie, had 3 huge saves in the shootout. And then Westwood winning with 58 seconds left to go in the second half. Mia Wiley, I believe is her last name. She had 2 goals of bracing that victory over New Braunfels. And on the girls' side in 5A, Leander, they shut out Alamo Heights. They won. They play Canyon on Friday. And then Georgetown girls, they'll play Magnolia after scoring 3 goals in the first half. Mentioned the 4A schools, Wimberley and Burnett, all advancing to 4A.
Cameron Parker with the footy update. Cameron, last year, did you call the state championship games?
I did the Drip Boys state title game against Frisco Wakeland.
And then what is that atmosphere like? I feel like all the listeners know. Maybe they've been to an Austin FC game, but for the most part, what they know is Texas high school football. But being there at state, calling those games, what was that atmosphere like?
If you can find a high school that really cares about their soccer program, like Frisco Wakeland, the environments are really fun. Like some high schools, it can be good or bad. I know Nico knows with Lake Travis, they have a great fan atmosphere, a great turnout. Sometimes you don't have that in every high school. Depends on the support you have. But for soccer games, they can get they don't get on the Austin FC level, but they get pretty high. It's fun to call, especially in a state title game. They play up in Georgetown, so it's almost kind of like a home game for Dripping Springs. It was last season, but Frisco Wakeland, they travel well. They had both the girls and boys teams playing in that state championship last season.
All right, you said his name. Let's get to it. Sitting across from me, introduced him a couple times, but Lake Travis, running back, over 1,000 yards on the season. Nico Hamilton. First of all, shout out to Coach Harge for helping set this up. Shout out to your dad for letting you pull up and bringing you up here. And thanks for coming on the show, bro.
Sure.
So Cameron kind of mentioned it there, like about playing at Lake Travis. I think that's where I want to start. I mean, if you ask someone outside of Austin about a school in Austin, they know Lake Travis. If you ask someone that's a high school football fan in general across the nation, there's a high % chance they know Lake Travis. But it's not just football that the success is over there at Lake Travis. They have a good baseball program. Their volleyball program is good. Their basketball program is good. What is it like just being a student athlete over at Lake Travis?
Well, I mean, it's a really big difference, especially because I transferred my freshman year from Bowie. It was a really big difference, like just going to camps and coaches seeing that I wear my Lake Travis shorts, and coaches seeing that, oh, you go to Lake Travis, just brings extra attention to anywhere I go. Or even if I go to a camp and it'll be out of town, like I went to the All-American San Antonio, the one in San Antonio. I mean, and I would wear, the Lake Travis stuff because it was a multi-day camp. I would wear it out in the hotel, and people would see it, be like, "Oh, you go to Lake Travis?" Yeah, I mean, it's just a lot.
Yeah, just kind of that recognition. But another thing I've noticed too, like going to other sports at Lake Travis, it always seems like the football team is there supporting, or the basketball team is at the football games, or the volleyball team is at this game. Do you feel that kind of camaraderie amongst like the other student athletes, maybe like to a heightened level over at Lake Travis?
Yeah, I mean, the energy at the games, like at the home games, is crazy. Like it's way different than any school. Like if anytime we're away, it's just no energy. Like sometimes there's not even music. It's kind of hard to get hype. But like just any other game that's at home, our student section is crazy. Like they go crazy.
All right, so we mentioned the stats: over 1,300 total yards, 12 touchdowns, in limited playing time. But I mean, you heard Coach Patman talk about it, that Arlington Martin game to start the season on TV. We're at the Texas Rangers ballpark, kind of really like a coming out. I mean, we all saw you like wearing this medium and 7-on-7, but I mean, this Arlington Martin game was like a true coming out party for you against a really high caliber opponent. What do you remember from that game, and how are you feeling after the game? And I mean, I know you got a little nicked up in that game, but just in terms of your performance and what you were able to show people, what do you remember from that game?
I remember it starting off pretty slow. I mean, I remember getting the ball a lot though. I mean, how many? I think I had like 21 carries that game. And I was just waiting to pop one. I remember one thing I do specifically remember is right before the drive that I had that 73-yard touchdown. I remember walking out the very first play. I remember just telling myself that I need to break one, that I need, like, my team needs it right now, or else it was gonna be way harder, because we were down, I think 3 scores. It might have been like 17 points or maybe 2 touchdowns. And I knew we needed a touchdown. So as soon as they called the outside zone, I knew I needed to get to the end zone.
And I think one of the biggest things watching that game, I mean, hearing that Bo wasn't going to start a couple of days before that game, trying to figure out what Lake Travis was going to look like. Because, I mean, I'm sure you mentioned people recognizing your shorts at camps. They recognize you as coming from the quarterback school or from the passing school, trying to figure out what this offense was going to look like with a brand new quarterback. And then watching that game and seeing that it was going to be a heavy dose of Nico Hamilton. What was your preparation like in order to not kind of have that like first game jitters, or to have maybe more time to warm up, knowing that you were going to get the ball a bunch of time? What was your preparation like once you kind of figured out that's where the offense was going to go this year?
It was a lot of work and practice. I mean, just the coaches pushing me a lot, just, making sure I'm on my stuff, just on my P's and Q's at practice, always trying to get everything out of me so I can be ready for the game. Because in practice, the tempo is quick. Like, we're going play, and I'll get 3 plays off and I'm right back in it. So whenever game time comes, it's way slower. It's, it's a lot more just, it's more like I can control the tempo. Like, just it's a lot slower. So when practice helps a lot going into the game, it just slows down the game for me, and it makes it a lot easier for me.
And when the coaches, I'm sure, came to you and kind of told you that, like, hey, this season's going to look a little bit different because we're not going to have Bo. We're going to run the ball a lot more. Even with Caden, like, he's able to use his legs a lot more. Just kind of that different aspect in the offense. Were you like excited to hear that? I mean, you mentioned coming from a new school. Like, did you have that confidence, or is that something you had to work towards?
No, I was ready. I was definitely ready. I wanted to show that I could, play ball, and I wanted a good game, especially on being on ESPN, so be a lot of exposure. I wanted to show that what I could do. And I believe that I did show what I could do.
I definitely think so.
28 carries, 1 tud, but I mean, you had 195 yards in 28 carries.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna do something on ESPN, like that's the way to do it. I mean, like normally people watching ESPN for their fantasy running back. I mean, that would have been a good amount of fantasy points right there.
Oh yeah.
But
Especially PPR.
yeah, we mentioned Bo, good friend of mine, good friend of the show. It couldn't have been more unfortunate and happened to a nicer person than Bo Edmondson, having to deal with that injury. And we're super happy for him to get the opportunity to go play in Vegas. But having Bo on the sideline, how big of a factor is that to you and the rest of the guys? Having someone that knows the offense, that has been there, done that. What were you able to learn from a player like Bo?
I mean, Bo, since he wasn't on the field, that didn't really affect the way he would act around the team. Like, he was never down about anything. There was never days that he would just go out to practice and be sad that he wasn't on the field. He was pretty much a coach at that point. He was getting everybody. It might as well have been, the starting quarterback. He was still a leader. He was still leading everybody. Getting everybody hyped before the game, making sure everybody was in the right mindset, getting everybody on their P's and Q's at practice, just everything. He was pretty much a coach at that point.
Yeah, and then so no Bo equaled Caden Leon, and I mean we saw in 7-on-7, Caden Leon was like one of the best receivers.
Yeah.
Like, so what was that like for y'all? I mean, because y'all were really like a 1-2 punch, like a dynamic duo. Like I mentioned, him being able to run the ball on his side of things as well, having you in the backfield. What is your relationship like with Caden, and how did you guys approach this season being two of the biggest factors of the offense, but being brand new, both of you guys?
I actually got really close with Caden this year. We actually ended up having 2 classes, so I would see him all throughout the day and then after school. So, we got really tight, especially just being in the backfield with him all the time. It made a lot of defensive, worry about, the option and stuff like that. So, yeah, but I'm real cool with Caden. That's my guy.
You think he's gonna be pretty nice for years to come there?
Yeah, I don't even know what we're doing this year. I mean, he might go back to receiver. He might be a quarterback. I don't know yet.
Is he, in your opinion, like that athletic that he could do both?
Oh yeah,
hands down, easy.
He plays baseball. He plays football. What else does he play? He plays
basketball.
Yeah, basketball.
Your dad over here playing charades.
Shout out Nico's dad. He's over here throwing up the hoops.
Nico Hamilton, Lake Travis, running back in studio. So we mentioned your numbers, your output, but we mentioned limited playing time. You got a little nicked up in that Arlington Martin game. When was it that you started feeling like you might have to miss some games? And then how different of a season do you think this would have been had you been? I mean, no one's going to be healthy from wire to wire, but had you not had to miss as many games as you did?
So against Steele, when I got hurt, I remember it was the second play of the game. Safety came downhill, hit my thigh. I didn't even really feel it until I got onto the sideline, and I was like, "Wow, that hurt!" And I was actually crying on the sideline. It hurt so bad. I've never felt something like that ever, because I've never really been hurt like that, and that was my first time. And so I mean, I still went in for all the rest of the first half and like the start of the third quarter, and I at that point, like in the third quarter, I couldn't run anymore, so they had to take me out. I still ended up with like 100 yards and a touchdown, but my backup Aiden Albright, I think he had 1 or 2 touchdowns that game. Obviously that could have been mine, and then I missed the game after that was Johnson, and we ran the ball a lot against them. And I missed Akins, and we had a lot of
63 points on the board in that game.
We had a lot of points that game too. So I mean, obviously, I missed out on some stats, but that's what next year's for.
When you have a season like that, well, not just you go through some injuries, Nico, but the entire team, it felt like it was just a bad year for Lake Travis from the jump. Is it hard not to get so frustrated knowing that, like, dang, we're missing 1 or 2 or 3 guys, and you're looking at Westlake and Drip, who stayed pretty healthy throughout the entire year?
No, I mean, I was still pretty confident the whole season. I was still confident that I was confident that we were going to win against Westlake, and that didn't go as planned. But and also against Drip too, it came down to the wire to the both games. Obviously, the score didn't really look like it against Westlake. They scored in like the last 2 minutes, but
That's a
It
lot
was
of Westlake games though. When they with those games, it's close until the end, and then they start chipping away
Yeah.
with like garbage time almost.
Yeah, and we were winning going into the first half, but I mean, we were moving the ball every drive, and then just I don't know, second half went downhill. And just turnovers, uh, you know, just couldn't move the ball as well. And then against Drip, uh, it came down to the very last drive, and it was 4th and 1, and on our own, I want to say 40, and my right tackle missed an assignment. He went up to the second level right after, and the end came in free, and we didn't get it, so they ran the clock the rest of the game. But that that was the game.
Yeah, I mean, looking at you guys' record, I mean, it's weird to see 7-5 next to Lake Travis. How motivating is that to you and Caden and the coaching staff to be like, okay, this is never going to happen again, and I'm going to make sure about that. How motivating is that, and how has your preparation? I mean, maybe in the weight room to try to prevent injuries, but how has your preparation been like to avoid that?
We talk about it every day, like how just like we can't have these seasons anymore. Like I feel like the past 2 years have been underwhelming for us, but I mean, I definitely think going into next year, our team was very young this past year, so we're gonna have a lot of returning starters, and I think that we're gonna get the job done this year. It's not gonna be anything underwhelming.
Yeah, I remember I did an interview. This is like a long time ago with Maynard. Maynard had like this crazy storybook season. I think it was like 2012, 2013, and only to meet Cedar Park. That was like when Cedar Park was on there, like craziest. And they met Cedar Park like in the quarterfinals or something, and Cedar Park just blew them out. And I remember interviewing this Maynard linebacker, and he was like crying in the interview. He was like, he looked at the scoreboard. And he was like, I swear to God, that's never gonna happen again. And I feel like sometimes that type of thing can be like all the motivation you need.
Mm-hmm.
Nico Hamilton. We got to know Nico Hamilton, the player. When we come back, let's get to know Nico Hamilton, the person. It's a flex.
6.
Flex, ATX, last segment of the night. I don't think that's charades anymore that Nico Hamilton's doing. Nico Hamilton's dad's doing. Zach Lucero, Nolan Hogan, Cameron Parker, Nico Hamilton. Nico Hamilton's pops in the building.
Tony Hamilton.
Hey, say what's up in the mic, Mr. Hamilton.
Hello, 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 hello. How's everybody doing out there?
Quick question for you. As a parent, what has this ride been like? I mean, your son's going to Division I camps. He's a key piece of a major 6A school's offense. As a dad, like going to the games, seeing your son progress as a player, going to these recruiting trips, seeing the opportunities that are going to be afforded to your son. How cool is that for you to be a part of this ride?
Man, I was actually thinking about it the other day, and I was thinking how, when we started getting him training when he was 10 years old, and how, he had a lot of things that he needed to work on, and just how far he's come from when we first started getting him training back in 6th grade to where we're at today. There's just been a lot of work that's been put in over the years, and to see that a lot of that work is starting to pay off. I think it's not only good for us as parents to see, but I think it's great for him to see as well that, anything can be done as long as you put in the work. If you put in the work, you can accomplish the goals that you need. And we've been working on this since the 6th grade. So it's because of the work, you know what I mean? And it feels good to see it.
Last one for you before you get back to your dancing. When did you know that okay, like Nico might be a little bit different than some of the other kids playing Pop Warner or playing 7th grade football, tackle football for the first time? When did you know like a big time varsity career is possible? Playing Division I, playing college football is something that Nico could do.
That's a great question. I first recognized it his freshman year at Bowie. They had a real good freshman team, but Nico definitely stood out. And like when you're in the 7th, when you're watching your kids play in the 7th and 8th grade, there's always like that one kid on the team, right? That stands out, right? And Nico's always, been one of those kids, but not the kid, right? But his freshman year, you could tell that the training that he was putting in since the 6th grade, in the 9th grade, you can start seeing him separate himself from a lot of the kids, and that's when I really saw it. It was the 9th grade. Yeah,
and I think behind every player that's come through the 512, that's come through in any area, high school into college, into whatever happens after that, it is a parent, a mom, a dad, a guardian, someone that they look up to, and yourself in the situation that is really there to kind of guide and put them through everything. So huge shout out to you. It's not easy. I mean, you're a coach. Patman mentioned like the financial part of it in volleyball. I mean, it's no easy in football as well. Last one for you. Any funny Nico stories before he was that guy that you can remember? I mean, Nico laughing, so there got to be something.
I'll tell you one thing that. Well, this is probably when I knew that this kid was different. I would say, in kindergarten, okay, this kid would before school, right? We're getting ready to take him to school. He would come out of his room with a suit and tie on.
Oh God!
He's 5 years old with a suit and tie on.
I'm ready for school, Dad.
I was like, what is happening right now? I was like, yeah, and he doesn't, if a kid comes to school with something like that on, you would think that kids would probably laugh at him or whatever, but he didn't care. He had a suit and tie on and did not care and loved it.
He was just getting ready for
different.
He was just getting ready for walking into NFL Sundays.
Exactly.
When Fox is coming in, they show Joe Shiesty all decked up. That's going to be Nico.
Yeah, Nico Shiesty for sure.
Hey, you're lucky he ended up putting you on all this football training and not signing you up for like business classes or something. Set you up with the franchise of Papa John's or something, man.
And shout out Sean Rutherford, Bam, Mo Wells, everybody, all the trainers.
All right, Nico, we go back to you, Mr. Suit and Tie. You mentioned your video games, playing Madden, playing 2K, playing Fortnite. Who's the best Madden player in the Lake Travis locker room?
Me.
Who's second best?
Me.
And how far?
Who puts up a good game against you? Like, who makes it like 21 skunk in the third quarter?
And is it because you use the Chiefs and it's cheese?
Probably Mo is probably the second best. The left tackle.
Okay.
Big Mo. Yeah. He's all right.
How good is he? I mean, you talk about your recruiting with your dad, but I mean, Mo is another guy that's just blowing up. How good is he? And where, like, what kind of heights do you project him to end up at?
I think he'll definitely pop off this year. He had a really good season last year. I don't know how he hasn't gotten more offers since then, but I mean, he has UTSA. He's been talking to North Texas, and I know that he's talking to a lot more schools. So, you know, his recruiting is probably going to pop off soon.
If you could compare yourself to one running back in college or pro, who's that guy that you try to style your game after, maybe that you look like?
I've always, since college, I've been watching Saquon Barkley, so I wouldn't want to say him.
Hey, Saquon Barkley not getting hurt in the thighs. Let me tell you that.
Yeah, knees.
It may be the dreads. I see Alvin Kamara. Come on,
Kamara.
That's a good play style comp too.
Because you catch the ball, you're great in the open field. It's really similar game style there.
Nico Hamilton, thank you for doing this, man. Before we let you go, who you shouting out to?
Shout out my coaches. Shout out my teammates. Shout out, like my dad said, Mo, Sean, Bam, all my trainers. That's about it.
Shout out your dad.
My pops.
For sure.
And my mom. And all my sisters.
Charades King himself. Cameron Parker, who you shouting out?
Derek Cohen for blowing up our text messages during the show.
Deco.
Yeah, we're
on the
doing
air,
a show,
dog.
Derek.
Come on.
You know that.
Tune
you did
in.
it
Do
last
some
week.
work, Derek. Jeez.
Nolan Hogan, who you shouting out to?
Shout out my family. Shout out my dad. Shout out Flex.
Shout out Austin Radio Network for the opportunity. Shout out all my G's. Shout out Gon. Shout out God. Shout out gang. We'll see you next week.